Good afternoon, everyone. Ooh, y'all are getting better. I'm getting you ready for Sarah's year, because she's not going to have it. Hi, my name is Alita Williams. I am president of the Rotary Club of Chicago, and I would like to open our 5,697th meeting. I know. And so we don't have a thought of the day, but I just wanted to say, like, most of us probably tried to watch that partial eclipse that we had. And, when we looked at it and everything, I was just like, wow, just how amazingly bright and big the sun is, that we had 90%, coverage, and it still looked like it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, like we were getting ready to go into the evening. So just kind of think about that and how amazing science and everything is, that we're just a small part of that. So with that, I would like to invite up Eric Kemple, who is going to introduce our speaker. Please always remember, please honor everyone's time and keeping your questions succinct and one per person. If you are on Zoom, please put your questions into the Zoom. In the room, please wait till the microphone comes to you so that the people on Zoom can actually hear your questions. We would appreciate that. And with that, Eric Kemple.
Thank you, Lita. So one of my best friends here in Chicago works for Lawndale Christian Health Center. And so I've always been impressed by the work that they do. And in fact, we supported their work during the pandemic by providing meals to those doctors and nurses who were treating COVID patients nonstop. So over time, I've learned about the many other Lawndale Christian enterprises, such as the Legal Center. Now, some of Cliff's story is in the gyrator, but just to summarize, because I think this is a great story here. His call to work with youth and young adults involved in the criminal justice system occurred in 2002 when he pedaled his bicycle from Denver, Colorado to San Diego, California to Miami, Florida with a Bible. Hopefully some food and water too. Cliff had just finished his federal clerkship in Denver after graduating from the University of Chicago Law School. He happened to cross a guard shack in front of a boys' correctional facility outside Springer, New Mexico. After striking up a conversation with the guard, Cliff was alarmed by the number of times the guard told him the kids in the facility had no hope. The guard said the kids who come in at 13 years old returned at 14, 15, 16, and went on to spend the rest of their lives in adult prison. As he pedaled on to San Diego and Miami, Cliff began to pray for youth in juvenile correctional facilities and asked God to give him a vision for serving them. So when he returned to Illinois, he enrolled in Trinity Evangelical Divinity School and received a Master of Divinity to go along with that law degree. And that's where he became acquainted with Lawndale Community Church, as well as the Christian Community Development Association. And through these relationships, Cliff was given a broader vision for what ministry to court-involved youth could look like. In 2009, Cliff moved to North Lawndale to live and raise his family there and to help found the Lawndale Christian Legal Center with the mission of providing integrated legal and social services to court-involved youth. Please welcome Cliff Nellis.
Good afternoon. I'm going to set my timer to 20 and give you a fair warning right now. Big Papa is going to play in 20 minutes. So not your typical timer. But thank you, Eric, and the Rotary Club for having me and for hosting this event and for inviting me to speak. I have to be honest, I am coming today with a little bit of a heavy heart. I don't know how many in the room are aware of this, but it's very front and center on my mind and my staff's mind today. Actually about 2 hours ago, the Chicago Police Department released a body cam video of a young man named Dexter Reed, who was shot 96 times by several officers on March 21st during a traffic stop. I've watched some of those body cam videos, and what we've learned is that it was an Area 4 tactical unit. Area 4 is relevant because it's based out of District 11 Police Station, which is right in North Lawndale, where I live and where our legal center is at. And I thought I would take just a quick second to acknowledge that and encourage you all to take a look at those videos and engage in, I would say, open dialogue with people like you and unlike you in your belief system. One of the things that I think we all can see is there's a strong polarization happening right now on things related to criminal justice, and we're not hearing each other. I'll just share from my perspective, and my perspective, as Eric kind of mentioned, is I grew up actually in a suburb of Chicago called Lake Zurich, and moved into North Lawndale in 2009. And I've lived now in North Lawndale, which is a predominantly African-American community, for 15 years. And all I've done for 15 years is represent young people involved in the criminal justice system under 25 years old. And as much as my bicycle trip was a life-changing experience for me, I was an atheist before that trip. So bringing the bicycle or bringing the Bible was not planned. It's a longer story, but became a believer on that trip. But as much as that changed my life, living in North Lawndale, serving alongside, attending a black church, serving young black kids in the neighborhood from North Lawndale that are involved in the criminal justice system has been an equally transformative experience. And so I know what I share is a volatile topic. I know it's emotional. I know there's two sides to every story. I know that there's officers involved that want to get home, and there's young people that often are involved too that want to get home. But I mention this because as I was reflecting on this video today, I came back to remembering my first case at the legal center. It was a young 14-year-old boy who was charged with involuntary manslaughter. And what that meant is that he and his friends had a garage in North Lawndale that was converted into like a urban treehouse, is kind of what I would kind of call it. There was couches, Game Boys, and things of that. He and his best friends had that garage since they were about third grade. So the families grew up together. Everybody knew each other, loved each other, and there was a lot of shootings in the neighborhood, and one of the fathers had given one of the young men a gun to store in the garage just in case. And at one night they were passing it around and it accidentally went off and shot his best friend in the head. His family did the right thing, took him right to the police station. And I share this because being a community-based lawyer, I often am contacted in real time when things happen. So that night I was contacted when he was arrested. The family goes to our church. And I went over to the 10th district. I'm gonna be brief on this because I do want to get to the presentation. But the officers transported him from the 10th district to the 11th district, which is just the other side of the neighborhood in North Lawndale. And on the way there, they had the family follow him. They ditched them at a red light. They blew through the red light, pulled a U-turn, took him back to the garage, and where his dead friend was lying, they interrogated him. Then they took him over to the 11th district, which is the district that this area tactical unit that we see now today's video, the detectives took over. I went over to the 11th district to ask to see him as his lawyer. And this was my first experience with the Chicago Police Department. It was a large man, probably 6'3", 6'4", bald, very, very muscular individual. You can't tell from here, but I'm about 5'8". And he got into my face, towered over me, and he said, "You're in my house now, I'll let you know when you can see your client." Thankfully, I'm not one to get bullied pretty easily, so I pulled out my pad of paper like a good lawyer, and I said, "Well, I'm documenting the date, time, location. I've got your badge number, I've got your name, and anything that happens from here forward isn't gonna see the light of day in court, so this house isn't your house, it's actually governed by the Constitution. Let me see my client." Was eventually able to see him. The next morning, we were in court, and the state's attorney, who was a white woman not from North Lawndale, I'm sure has never stepped foot in North Lawndale, would probably never even be open to coming to North Lawndale, made an argument in court that this young man was a threat to our society and should be locked up pending trial. He's a 14-year-old boy. The argument was that his nickname, which I'll give it, it's called, Squish. It's not his real name, but it's kind of like that. His nickname's a gang nickname, and he's a threat to our society. He should be locked up pending trial as a 14-year-old. Now that nickname was given to him by his grandmother at birth, because when his face came out of the womb, his face was squishy, and it stuck. And then if you're familiar with communities like North Lawndale, I am now, I wasn't before, but I'll tell you, his real name is his nickname. There's family members that don't know his legal name. I mean, Squish, not his real name, is the name that everybody knows him by. And I have other funny stories about witnesses that I've been trying to find where people didn't know their real name and they found out the real name and they were like, "Oh wow, I can't believe your real name's Perlander." But that's a story for another day. I felt bad for the guy because I think he had a cool nickname and they were like Perlander. But anyway, I share this because, my experience in North Lawndale has shown me that we do have problems in the criminal justice system. It's racially biased. The impact that the criminal justice system, and I mean the whole thing, this is not a finger at police. This is lawyers, this is judges, this is state's attorneys, this is probation, parole, prisons. It's the whole kit and caboodle, and at the end of the day, it's somewhat of a reflection of our society and our beliefs. And what happens when you have a 14-year-old who could arguably have not been charged, not been arrested, instead was treated this way, interrogated over his best friend's dead body, and then the state's attorney was trying to keep him in prison until 21. That's a pretty shocking thing. When you go to a police station and you're threatened by an officer as an attorney, it's a pretty jarring moment. And I'd like to say that over the last 15 years, those were one-offs and anomalies. Unfortunately, they're not. And I share all that today because the incident that happened on March 21st, the video that's just been released, has actually been a subject of my research, and another role I play is the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, the CCPSA. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's the first civilian oversight board in the country here in Chicago. We have forward-thinking powers. We can pull policies, we can recommend changes. Anyway, I've been doing research ever since Tyree Nichols was murdered in Memphis. That was about a year ago, if you all remember. It was the Scorpion unit in Memphis. About 5 guys took him out of the car, beat him to death, basically. And ever since then, I've been doing research into Scorpion-like police practices here in Chicago. And these area tactical units are the units where the excessive force claims are the highest and most common. They roll in cars, usually 4 or 5 people deep. They're in street clothes, they're not in uniforms, and they're known for aggressive practices. The young people in North Lawndale have a name for them, they're called jump out boys. So it's not every officer, but the other very specific units, kind of like that Scorpion unit in Memphis, that is charged with these high volume traffic stops to remove weapons from the street with the idea that it makes our community safer. I wrote an op-ed on it in the Crane's Business Journal. I can give you a link to it. The reality is the data does not support that this is working. In fact, out of the stops, it's less than 1% are they actually even recovering any contraband. And what ends up happening out of 900,000 stops, like 600,000 people are just innocent people going about their day. So it's high volume traffic stops without regard to the Constitution. This is well documented. This is Superintendent Brown, the previous superintendent, was his policy on this issue. And it's shown across the nation to fail. I'm concerned because today's video, I've seen the body cam videos, and while it does appear as though there's perhaps justified self-defense on the officers, it also could possibly be that there's justified self-defense on behalf of Dexter. When the officers approached the car for not wearing a seatbelt, that was the reason why I was pulled over, at least according to the reports we know now. Failure to wear a seatbelt, the windows are very tinted. I think it'd be very hard for anybody to see a seatbelt, but let's just assume that it was an honest stop and it was for a seatbelt. 5 officers got out of the car, 3 of them surrounded the car with their guns already drawn, pointing it at Dexter outside of his vehicle, demanding him to move out. Now, I've been driving a car for, 40 years. And I've not worn a seatbelt. I've been pulled over for a number of things, traffic violations, et cetera. I've never had an officer come to my car with a gun pointed at my head telling me to get out of my car because I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Now, there could be more information. I'm not saying that there isn't, but I would encourage all of you, wherever you are at on these issues and however difficult they are, to at least be open and listen, because this is really a painful thing for a lot of people. And right after this meeting, I'm going back to the legal center. We're going to host a healing circle. We don't even know how bad it is or what it is, but I can tell you right now, I've got 100 staff that are probably crying right now, just like me, because regardless, a young man, 26 years old, was shot 96 times, and whether he shot back or shot first, at the end of the day, it's a tragedy, and these are the kinds of things that we want to change. I just burnt 10 minutes, and that wasn't even part of my presentation, so I'm gonna have to get moving, but I just couldn't let the day go by since it was literally just released about 2 hours ago. So what are we doing about it at the Legal Center? We'll focus on a little more hopeful outcomes. So we, as I said, we started the Legal Center 15 years ago, and the idea was to start a community-based holistic defense practice where we integrated legal and social services for young people under 25 from one community, hyper-local, and year to year, 75 to 80% of our budget goes to social services. We have 100 staff today, we have 7 lawyers, the rest are social services, to give you a picture, right? huge investment in social supports. We're building a $21 million residential workforce development center for 20 young men involved in the criminal justice system. So that kind of gives you a picture of who we are high level. When we started 15 years ago, all we wanted to do was be a community-based holistic defense practice. Over the last 15 years, we evolved into this justice accelerator. We didn't know we would, but over the last 15 years, we've piloted innovative ideas on different solutions on how we can approach criminal justice problems with a different set of values and a different set of practices. And what we've already shown to date is that these values and practices, when applied at different steps of the criminal justice system, from policing all the way to parole, which is the whole system, courts, everything in between, there is remarkably better impact, and it's a remarkably better way to make our communities safe. It's a win for everybody, not just the defendants, not just the communities, not just the victims, not just the police, not just the system. It's a win across the board. But before I go into there, I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but just give you some sense of North Lawndale, predominantly African-American community. The statistics on the left are North Lawndale. On the right is city of Chicago. So people who feel safe in their community, 35% versus 61. Unemployment, 17 versus 8. People living in poverty, 39 versus 25. And then life expectancy, 67 versus 75. So that just gives a high-level overview. We could go much longer on this, but given I already spent 10 minutes in the intro, I'll keep moving. But the idea here is that the North Lawndale community, through a lot of systemic racism and oppression over the last decades and centuries, we've created a food desert, a recreation desert, a desert of all kinds, where young people don't have the resources they need to grow up and thrive. And this is some of the data that shows that. So as we started to develop our unique set of values, and I'll contrast them in a little bit in this way. I'll say most criminal justice systems and lawyers are court-based, right? The public defender's office is our equivalent. We're in the community. That's a big difference when it comes to trust, building relationships, and having impact on people, particularly young people. The court system is lawyers and law enforcement only. We are holistic. So we have mental health practitioners, housing, case managers, licensed clinical social work. It's a holistic approach and mentality to the same issues and same problems. We are restorative justice versus punitive justice. So punitive justice, a law is broken, there's penalties and punishments prescribed for those laws. Restorative justice is recognizing that there's relationships broken, a community that's been harmed, and that through a process called restorative justice healing circles, we can heal the harm and then help both the victim be restored and the defendant to go on and not do this again and make amends to the community. So these values, though, when we place them in different contexts, the things that we're really solving is that the criminal justice system is not flexible, right? We're a relatively small nonprofit. The criminal justice is very inflexible. There's unions involved. There's decades of culture. We can pilot things, get it off the ground quick, right? There's not enough investment in our criminal justice system to test new ideas. I mean, if this were a for-profit company, it would have died a long time ago. There's no innovation, there's no testing, there's no new anything. Services, typically organizations on the ground, and I'll tie to this last one too. The people that are most impacted by the criminal justice system are almost never at the table deciding policies. It's frankly usually more people like myself or people in the suburbs, more affluent people, judges, lawyers, and the like. And yet they're not the ones that actually understand from a lived experience what it means to go through the system and how it impacts them. And so we're trying to reverse that. Our founding board of directors, 100% residents of North Lawndale. By our bylaws, 51% of our board of directors will be residents of North Lawndale. Our staff, I'm proud to say, we are over 50% on 100 staff from North Lawndale. When we were smaller, we were keeping 70 to 100%. So we feel that we're not just community-based, we're community-led. It's very important to us that the people most impacted, closest to the problem, who experience it firsthand, are actually leading and guiding the work we do. I can go to the next slide. So what is the Justice Accelerator Matter model? We understand that there's cyclical harms experienced by marginalized communities like North Lawndale. We design pilots, say, hey, this is a different kind of way of doing it. Let's design a pilot. Let's say we're gonna serve X number of people to attach an evaluation to it. When we're done, we'll have the results. And then we can decide which ones should go to scale if it proved the KPIs we thought it would prove, and those that didn't, shut it down. We learned it's not working. So we go to the next slide. I think this is a couple of our pilots. So we launched the first restorative justice community court in the country in North Lawndale. If you haven't heard about it, you can Google it. There's now 3 in Cook County. There's one in Avondale, one in Englewood. But this court has had remarkable impact. I'm going to show you that next. Illinois is the first state to end cash bail, and we launched what we call community release with support. The idea is when people are no longer posting money to go to get their freedom pre-trial, that we offer text court reminders, a travel budget. We have a Lyft budget. We pick people up and take them to and from court, and then we link them to social services pending trial. Out of that, and the slides here, I apologize, I formatted things improperly, so this is going to be messed up. I think the next slide, yeah, you can't see that. So this is what this slide would tell you. Out of 3,000 people we've served in community release with support, 98%, this would be the slide if you could see it. There's a nice little 98% here have returned to their court dates. So the idea that people need to post money in order to return to court, it's not true. This is hard data. 3,000 people is not a small number. It's over 2 years. 61% of cases have been dismissed. 61% of the people, their cases were dropped. I could talk to you about why I think that is. That's a bigger number than I would have even thought. But the short story is when people are home pending trial, forces the state's attorney to really actually do their job. Because now you're willing to fight, you're going to work, you're going to school, the power table changes. We can go to the next slide. So this is our community holistic defense. On average, we're serving about 340 people a year. While we're serving them, which is usually between 1 to 3 years, 82.2%. This number changes. It's always in between, quite frankly, 82 and probably 88. Are not catching new cases. 75% linked to critical supports. 53% progress in employment. 66 in school. We specialize in emerging adults and minors. And then we're able to keep 62% of our young people in community with supports instead of going to prison and having permanent felony records. It's a game-changing trajectory if you're a young person. We have a randomized control trial evaluation that we're finishing up with the University of Chicago. So 330 people represented by the Public Defender's Office, 330 represented by us. And they're going to track the legal and social outcomes so that, as I mentioned, when we do a pilot, we don't want to just say it's better, tell you some stories, and I could tell you stories all day. We want data and rigorous evaluation to guide us. And so the University of Chicago is doing a randomized control trial evaluation. We expect a tentative report out in a year and a final result in 2 years. I will eat my shirt if it's not exponentially better than our current public defender's office or our current statistics that we're able to get through normal means. We can go to the next slide. So moving to the future, we are launching this $21 million facility in North Lawndale, fully raised. We've got $21 million. It should open, the residential portion will open in July. The full building will open in October. And as we begin to look to the future, finish the pilots we're on and add more pilots, the trunk, the core of who we are will always be that community holistic defense, because that's where we have lawyers, case managers, outreach workers walking alongside our young people through every step of the criminal justice system, so we can see firsthand through their experience and through their input as well, what's working and what's not working, what's harming community versus helping. And so I've already covered these two. This next pilot, we piloted this in 2015. It's a residential workforce development center. We had 5 young men who we placed in housing with workforce development supports while we were representing them in court. And we partnered with local unions to do a pre-apprenticeship tracks. It's an alternative to prison. It's basically, the idea is for 18 to 24-year-olds, we can build more residential workforce development centers, fewer prisons, and we're proving it. 5's not a lot, I'll give you that. But we thought if we got one guy a union job, that would be a success. We got 4 guys in the union, 1 a non-union job, all 5 stayed out of the criminal justice system. When they had a safe place to lay their head and a job with prevailing wage, not minimum wage, prevailing wage, partners came back together, children came in the home, and they actually formed a unit and raised their children. That's 20 minutes, so we'll go to the next slide. This is stats. I already went through this. We can actually we can skip this slide because that was in that thing. This is the $21 million state-of-the-art residential community justice center launching July 2024. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, this is one that also can't see. But maybe go back to the picture slide since it's a little bit nicer. So the building on the right and the back is the dormitory style housing. There's 20 units. The building on the left is our operations with all of our staff. It is a justice campus in which we'll have the restorative justice community court we hope will be based out of there. But our community holistic defense, community release with support, and then 20 units of dormitory style housing. I think I have pictures of the dorms if you want them in the appendix, but we can skip that. We can go to the next slide. I'm gonna wrap this up. Next slide. Next slide. 13 million is about the thing. So I'll plant this seed. This is not this is one of the slides. Unfortunately, I also did not format correctly. You can tell where my strengths are, and decks are clearly not it. We are doing a building dedication campaign to raise the 13 million that we needed to sustain these kinds of operations. Not all of which we'll get from this, but like a typical thing, there's naming rights for the building for 3 million. If anybody in the room is interested in naming the building, there's 100K to 750K, 850K for the basketball court, million for the floors, et cetera, et cetera. But this is something that we're launching now in through July when we start giving tours of the place. If you guys are interested, I can come. You guys are welcome to come. I'd host any of you for a tour, and then we can go to the next slide. But this will be specifically for justice-involved young men 18 to 24 that we've represented that will be getting the wraparound supports of housing plus workforce development on a track of anywhere between 1 to 3 years with the goal of helping them save money and then buy their own place or get their own place afterwards and be on their own 2 feet. I think I'll go ahead and sort of an abrupt ending, but I'll just maybe end by saying, although I started on a heavy note, and I say this with a lot of pain, to be honest. Over the last 15 years, we've buried 42 kids. 42 kids. I can't even tell you what that's like. But I say it even in the midst of that, I really honestly believe that we are going to transform the criminal justice system and make it better. I have no doubt. We have the right people, we have the right talent, we have the right values, skills, and we're in the right location to really make a big difference. So thank you for having me today, and I'll open it up for questions now.
Anyone have questions?
Thanks so much for coming and speak with us and the presentation and the work that you do. I'm curious because it does seem like in the last, year to 2 years, there's been a bit of a pendulum shift backwards. And I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. I can date myself, but I was born in '86, and my entire lifetime has been up until, let's say, 2019, 2020. The question is, how do we increase police, incarceration, those kind of things as solutions, as opposed to, actually seriously taking other things otherwise. And then we've had that shift, and then it seems like very much back again. Can you talk about just kind of where you think the pendulum is and where you think it's going?
Yeah, I agree with you. Unfortunately, I think, in my circle, the question was always around George Floyd. Was that going to be a movement or a moment? I think, unfortunately, turned more into a moment. I think there was some progress made. I'm not going to belittle some of the steps that were made, but the pendulum is definitely swinging back, right? You have the state's attorney that was recalled in San Francisco. Locally, Kim Foxx is not running again. I'm sure that's unfortunate in my opinion. But it is what it is. But yes, I'm not saying that she's not on board with the continued change. I think that she had a really tough job. But anyway, I think unfortunately the pendulum is going back. You saw last year, if you remember, when the end of cash bail was like this big deal in Illinois, and there was the Scream commercial. I don't know if you all saw that on TV, but they were doing $25 million in PR to try to get it reversed. And I showed you numbers. Those are real numbers. 3,000 people, 98% returned to court, 61% of their cases were dismissed. And all it's saying is that your freedom shouldn't be based upon your wallet. It's not saying there's no bond. It's not saying people can be, can't be detained pending trial. They can be. Judges can still order that. But I look at that last year as like a massive pendulum swing against it. Now, fortunately, it stood, but there was a strong movement across the state of Illinois to repeal the Pretrial Fairness Act, which obviously we support. So I don't have much to add other than I agree with you. We've been in this for 15 years, to be honest. There's times where it's like, people are more aware and less aware, and the pendulum kind of goes back and forth, and we deal with it. I will say, I think people in my field are more aware now than ever that philanthropy is getting harder for this kind of work because of that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, thanks for the great presentation. Do you work at all with organizations like, I'm thinking of Arnie Duncan's Chicago Cred? There seems to be some overlap in some of the strategies that some of the community-based strategies that you're working on. So I'd be curious to hear about those overlaps and partnerships.
Yeah, we're very close to CRED, READY, CP4P, the three big initiatives on violence prevention right now in Chicago. We actually helped design and launch Communities Partnering for Peace, which used to be C4P, now it's CP4P. But that's metropolitan. We were a part of READY. We actually helped launch it, and we were actually a funded recipient for about 3 years. We pulled out because it was better for us to partner with organizations doing that work than us to do it directly. But no, I think that is one of the things that I am happy about is what's happening in Chicago is an investment is being made in the people that, quite frankly, most of the time everybody's asking to put them in prison, saying the best thing to do would be to put them in prison, not invest in their future. And you know, CRED, READY, CP4P, and the Legal Center, and a number of other organizations that practice community violence intervention, CVI, I think I'm encouraged by the fact that, you know, we have that level of private funding and public. It's turning into public funding as well for that work. I hope that it can translate into, right now they're very focused on shooters and being shot, which is a huge part of what we do as well, given our work. But there's a broader spectrum of crime that community violence or community crime intervention, I think, is what I would substitute CCI instead of CVI. I think there's a lot of work we can be doing on, I mean, vehicle hijackings have gone up, right? But burglaries, robberies, all those things where somebody's not shot or shooting are equally important to our safety. And so I think we do that plus the other crimes, if you will. And then the other thing too that's different between us and them, and why we are a good partnership as opposed to doing it together, is the carrot that we've always had that frankly is a huge differentiator in this field. The CVI movement is founded on a core principle that a credible messenger, somebody who's formally involved in the streets, we call them outreach workers, we have a whole 7 of them on our staff, they're invaluable. They're very good at this. They have the ability to go out, respond to shootings, and try to broker peace to different sides that need brokering. I've been a part of that. I've seen our team do it. It's phenomenal work. The difference between us and them is that they take that outreach worker, they go out, and it's almost like a cold call, if I were to make an analogy. You're going out and try to build a relationship for the first time with a younger person typically and get them connected to services. We've never had to go out. They come to us because they need a lawyer. And so it's a different thing when you have to go and try to bring them in versus they come to you saying, I need your help. And then we say, well, we have a holistic operation here, so we're going to fight for you in court unapologetically. We're going to give you the best defense you could get in Chicago, and I truly believe that. But we're also going to fight as hard for you in your community, in your home, on the block, at school, at work. And if you want just a lawyer, the public defender's office will be appointed for you. And that's usually the speech I'd give for my clients. I'd say, you already have a lawyer. If you come here, I want you to think more about some of the things that are driving this involvement in the criminal justice system, and we'll help you, you know, whatever goals you have, we'll help you achieve them.
Anyone else? No questions on Zoom? Well, I always say, you know, these things don't happen in a vacuum. So how do you, well, you have holistic services after they've, you know, had this interaction with the criminal justice system. Are you all a part of helping to not get them there?
Yeah, so every organization can only do what they do, right? And their, you know, prevention work, I think, is what a lot of people would call that field. I'll say 2 things about the prevention versus intervention. I think it's a both and, not an either or. And I will say this about prevention that I think is a bit of a myth in working on the ground in this way. A lot of the recidivism or street involvement is generational, right? And so if you're not working with the kids right now, who unfortunately oftentimes do have kids, but you know, the 15, 16, 17 up to 24, if you're not intervening in their lives, you're not intervening in their child's lives either. And so to intervene there is to actually break that generational cycle, right? And like our residential workforce development center, very clearly, you know, that's 20 young men who they and their children that cycle will be broken, just as it was in the original pilot. So I think it's both and. I think that when I think of this issue, we stay in our lane. Like, we're lawyers, you have to have contact with the criminal justice system, right? But that's a huge number of people every year that we're spending literally billions on, 300 billion a year in just direct costs, 1.2 trillion by other estimates when you include healthcare, unemployment, et cetera, family breakdown, whatever the number is. We have people in our society who are in relationship, they don't think of themselves this way, judges, lawyers, but they're in relationship with the people who are hurting other people in our community. And rather than just look at them as a case and a statistic to resolve a legal matter and be done, and if you go to 26 in California, our courthouse, it's rapid fire. I mean, there's not a lot of humanity involved. And so I say, like, we're spending $300 billion, and what kind of return are we getting? It's horrible. The recidivism rates, I forgot to mention, but the Restorative Justice Community Court, this is an important statistic. We did a comparison let's see here. It was 86% of the cases were gun charges. They're all young men, young men and women, 18 to 24-year-olds. And the match group from 26 in California, court as usual, versus Restorative Justice Community Court, for the same people, same charges, same neighborhood, is 86.9% no new cases. So 13.1% new cases in the Restorative Justice Community Court. In the regular court, it's 65.2% have new cases, right? And that's 34 then not. So it's a staggering return on investment. One is a cost that only genders more costs. The other is an investment that actually gets a return. And so I'm looking at the 300 billion to 1.2 trillion and saying we are grossly overspending in a very ineffective way. And it takes a nimble nonprofit with a certain set of values and capabilities to pilot innovative ideas. And I only highlighted 2. We've done about, I think, 7 in 15 years. We probably did more than we could chew at times, which is why I have no more hair. But we're being more disciplined in our future with multi-year funding to launch a new pilot with an evaluation, and so that we can, hopefully drive some learning for our society. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Stay there, my friend.
Oh, okay.
So this is a thank you gift, a wonderful coffee. I'm sure you drink a lot of coffee. And but you'll also receive some Al's Cookie Mix in the mail. This year we are supporting Al's Cookie Mix. A friend of mine, Alvin Green, started a cookie company to help his son and his friends that are on the autism spectrum. Okay. So when they age out of the CPS system, they have jobs and they're able to support themselves. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Da-da-da-da-da. And next, we'd like to let Meredith come up and introduce herself since I rushed her out the room 2 weeks ago. So come on up, Meredith. She's one of our newest members.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited just to share a little bit about myself and why I'm here in Rotary. I have lived in Chicago for almost 18 years, but prior to that, I grew up in Kentucky. So I feel like my home sometimes is all over the United States, but I've really been in Chicago a long enough time that I feel like I am a Chicago resident by this point. I worked in commercial real estate for over 20 years and really spent my time managing a think tank that looked at consumer behavior and really their retail shopping habits to inform commercial real estate landlords and owners about how to position centers, how to think about markets. And during that time, I worked with a lot of different communities, interacted with a lot of data, and became really well educated about every community that I lived in with the exception of Chicago. And so I feel like I can tell you anything about Salt Lake City and their gentrification of all their areas, but I couldn't tell you about Chicago. And that's what brought me to Rotary. I really wanted to think about now, as I'm changing my job, kind of looking at evaluating what I want to do. I definitely want to become more grounded in my community. And so a Rotarian had recommended to me, you have to go to Rotary and really check that out. And it's going to be a beneficial experience to you. So that is why I've chosen here to become part of this. I'm very excited. I've already enjoyed everything I've learned, hearing from our speakers about all the wonderful endeavors that were out there and what we're trying to do to really rethink how do we want to live within this community and what do we support. So I'm very excited for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith, and we are glad to have you. And so I don't believe we have any visitors or visiting Rotarians. Do we have any on? Oh, okay. Let me keep on going. And very sadly, I have to announce that our president-elect, soon-to-be-elect, Laura Enns has, for business reasons and personal reasons, has stepped away from being president-elect. And so with that, the board has appointed and asked Nancy Kalbrunner to now be our president-elect for the 25-26 year. Shada Calderoy will still be our president nominee. Nancy was supposed to be on the board, and so she will be replaced with Freddie Crenshaw, and then Robert Harney be secretary. Steve will still be our treasurer. Ryan Curo will be a director, and Alexander Gordon will be a director. So that is our slate for the incoming year. Job one, as always, we have our wonderful students who are all ready to go. Now we just need some jobs. So if everyone could get out there and talk about what a great opportunity having one of our students are. You know, we also help go to nonprofits and we reimburse 50% of what you pay our kids, just putting it out there. If you would like a wonderful intern for the summer, we also we start our job training this Saturday here at the Union League Club on the 8th floor in the steel room. So if you would like to come and be a part of helping to train our wonderful students to get them ready for their job interviews and to get them ready for work, that would be awesome. Starts at 9 a.m. And the CPS Opportunity Grant applications in today. Yeah. So if you have friends like mine who like to do everything at the utterly last minute, you can still let them know. They have until midnight to get it in today. You'd be amazed by my friends. Next. Jeff Ferguson presentation will be on April 16th here at the Union League Club, Structural Roots and Feeding Chicago's Chronic Challenges. So please register to be a part of that meeting. And then we have a fundraiser for Job one called Network Palooza. It's going to be at the Irish American Heritage Center. It is being put on by the Business Executive Group with Rotary, TAG, Small Business Association. I believe NABO is going to be there. It's free to come. And if you come, $1 from every beer will be split between Job one and Team Owen. And I believe $1 from food also gets split between us. So please come and drink and eat. And for those of y'all who don't enjoy libations, I think we still get it off of soda. So please come. And then we have the district conference. That's on April 20th. Come out, learn about the district. It's a joint district conference, 6440 and 6450. So it's a great full day full of speakers, different sessions. I believe I'm supposed to be talking about Rotary Means Business there. I'm not sure. And we also have a House of Friendship, so you can learn about all the different fellowships and things that are available in both districts. $95, and it includes lunch, a reception, and I believe there's coffee or something in the morning too. I believe there's a breakfast. And on Tuesday, April 23rd, we're having a fellowship luncheon. We're gonna come and hang out and talk to each other, get to know each other a little bit more. So I wish everyone to come out. Rotary Means Business is on the first Monday of every month on May 6th. It will be at Cafe Chow on Sangamon and Madison. And on May 7th, We have Jetta Bates, who is an amazing, I am a little biased, she's one of my best friends, but she does great about public relations and brand strategy. So that's part of our Carl Zimmerman Entrepreneurship Series. How do you take your brand and take it to the next level? And then Chicago Women of the Year on May 14th. We have wonderful, wonderful honorees, and now it's time for you all to come out and support. We do have sponsorships available for Women of the Year, but please just want you to come out. It's got to be across the hall in that wonderful big room over there. So we need to fill that room up and really support. This is the 11th year, and really honor these great women that are going to be awarded. And those are our sponsorship levels. So, something for everybody. Next. And our Rotary Roundtable every Friday on the 4th floor in the Carvery. Just come out and have a good time, talk to members, have lunch with somebody. We have our weekly volunteer opportunity at Cornerstone. Next. Every Wednesday. Meredith came out and helped me last week. I bet she didn't think she was gonna make in 200 salads, but she made it happen. But we do have opportunities from 2 to 5 or 5 to 7:30. And last but not least, the dictionary project needs to be up and running. So we need to get together, find your wonderful dictionary partner, and go out there and give out those dictionaries to third graders. They're waiting for us to come, so we need to go out there and give them out. And they're always super excited when you give them a book. They're just amazed. It's when they're still fun to be around. No, but it's a really great opportunity. They're so excited to get the dictionaries, and they're so amazed that it's theirs. Like, I don't have to share this with my brother or sister. It has a name tag in it, so they can write their name in there. Like, this is my book. I don't have to give it back. I don't have to give it back to the school. Like, no, it's yours. And they're like, yay. So you should go out and enjoy that. As always, give to the Rotary Foundation and to Rotary One Foundation. That is how we do the great work that we do in our community. And if you did not receive the gyrator, there's a QR code on your table. Next slide. And a QR code that's going to come up so that you can get our gyrator. And please let the office know if you would like to be on the email list. We have all of our committee meetings coming up. So our committees are always looking for more members so that we can do more things. And with that, if we could stand to do the 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. And number 4. And the most important, number 5, will it be fun? And with that, I adjourn the meeting.